Our campaign is Humans of New York. We are Taylor Sandweg, Jackie Giuliano, Yesenia Kaloka, Donna Taylor, and Christy Rosen.
We chose to examine refugee stories by Humans of New York due to its huge success in bringing awareness to the refugee crisis. The UN Refugee Agency currently states that an unprecedented 65.3 million people around the world have been forced from their homes. Among them are nearly 21.3 million refugees, over half of whom are under the age of 18. Although a lot of people were at least somewhat familiar with the crisis, the Refugee Stories from Humans of New York was able to reach a broad audience with its use of social media across several platforms. The use of stirring images and short, personal stories serves to humanize the individuals that are suffering from the refugee crisis. For many people from the Western world, the refugee crisis is an abstract and faraway problem that they can't relate to. However, by sharing photos and stories of their struggles, people are better able to put themselves in those shoes and turn their apathy for the situation into compassion. Brandon Stanton's project didn't immediately go viral. He started with just photographs of people in New York, but wasn't gaining much of a following. Over time, he evolved it to include quotes from conversations he had with the subjects of his photographs, and this morphed yet again into much longer stories. Stanton said in an interview that he realized that social media was really the platform in which most people connected with his project. Thus, he got rid of his freestanding website and fully committed to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Now that Humans of New York was on the right platform to go viral, people began reading and widely sharing his photos and captions. Since Stanton was getting many private details from strangers, readers felt like they were an insider and a part of something. His work pulled people in and provided a kind of social currency. Today, he has over 24 million followers on social media, with his biggest platform being on Facebook with over 18 million people.
So how did this all begin? The idea of Humans of New York was started by Brandon Stanton. He lost his job at the Chicago Board of Trade and decided to move to New York City. And he had a new camera at that time, and he just started taking portraits of people on the street. So it began as kind of like a photography project for him in 2010. And then every time he added photos and quotes, it kind of evolved into more of lengthy interviews, and his quotes got longer and longer. So his initial goal was to have photographs of 10,000 New Yorkers, and it kind of evolved from a photography blog into a storytelling blog, and his interviews got longer and longer, and he wanted to start telling the stories of these people. And he kind of wanted to give people a glimpse into the lives of these New Yorkers. Brandon's storytelling blog, Humans of New York, then expanded itself into feature stories from over 20 countries around the world. Some of his series include Pediatric Cancer, Invisible Wounds, Inmate Stories, Syrian Americans, and Refugee Stories. Our group specifically wanted to focus on refugee stories. This series began in October 2015 after Brandon traveled to several countries across Europe, including Greece, Hungary, Croatia, and Austria. And he wanted to capture the stories of refugee men and women who were making their way across Europe. And he was also spotlighting his stories on people that were helping these migrants and helping them immigrate and find asylum. As Taylor explained earlier, Humans of New York has gained a ton of popularity through social media, through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And because of this, Humans of New York now has a worldwide audience. Many of them in the US, yes, but also several countries around the world. Because he has this audience, Stanton's series on refugee stories, he's trying to help us gain awareness about refugees and what they're facing and dealing with. And specifically, he wants to share their stories with us because a lot of them can't express because they don't speak English and they're unable to tell their stories and what they're going through. So Brandon's able to do this through his Humans of New York's storytelling blog. And because of social media, Brandon was able to raise $700,000 in December of 2015 specifically for Syrian refugees through an online fundraiser. So because of his worldwide audience and his social media audience, this has enabled Humans of New York to help these refugees and help them find asylum and help them with anything that they need.
The limited portrayal of refugee stories compared to the number of refugees displaced does not give a accurate account of all of the refugee stories and traumatic events that they have experienced. Specifically with Syrians, according to a report from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, as of October 1st, 2015, there have been more than 4 million refugees that have been registered. In our previous statistic given, there are 21.3 million refugees, according to the same agency, as of 2015. So with this specific series, Humans of New York, Syrian American series, it only highlights 10 families. With the Refugee Story series, it only highlights 20 families. So this was truly a short-term project to raise awareness of refugees, but given the start of the Syrian conflict back in 2011 and the ongoing struggles and challenges of current refugees trying to seek asylum elsewhere, it truly doesn't give you an accurate perspective and an ongoing perspective, given the fact that the Syrian Americans series was published in September of 2015 and the Refugee Stories was published in December of 2015, and there have not been any follow-ups or a progression of this series. Given the duration of this particular series from September to December 2015, a lot of content has been uploaded since then, pertaining more to the original concept of Humans of New York, of photographing residents and sharing their stories. And so because of this, users have to scroll back through hundreds of posts before they can actually see the original post about the refugee stories and Syrian American stories, and that's approximately going back 1 year. So in that sense, it's not easy for a user looking for this specific content to look for these posts through social media, specifically Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, in addition to that, the limited social media presence of Humans of New York truly is summarized by the website, the Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts. So it's not using or taking advantage of other social media platforms such as Snapchat or Pinterest that could potentially attract more users or be able to share these stories on a different level and connect with people in a different platform. Facebook is one of the strongest platforms for Humans of New York with over 18 million likes. But in order to find the original series for refugee stories and Syrian Americans, you have to scroll through older posts in order to get to the original ones. The one on the screen is dated back December 11th, 2015. One of the things that Humans of New York can potentially utilize and is underutilized in this case are the different features that Facebook offers, including possibly organizing the special series into albums, just like they are on the website, that would enable users to quickly find and possibly share or like or comment on older series such as this one. They also have the capability to do some sort of video recording as well, so that could be another feature that can reach other users on a different level. The Humans of New York Instagram account has over 6 million followers. However, the similar challenge of having to go through older posts like Facebook to find the original series is challenging and time-consuming for a user. Hashtags are not used, which could assist users in targeting specific series or stories. One of the most evident challenges on Instagram are the length of the stories. With this particular platform, lengthy stories have to be split up into multiple posts. The Humans of New York Twitter account has over 500,000 followers. Tweets are now limited to 140 characters, creating a challenge. The style of posting on Twitter consists of a screenshot from Facebook and utilizes the first words of the story. Because of the word limitations, hashtags are not used just like on Instagram. The use of screenshots may also take away from the quality of the photos and the readability of the stories.
The strength of Honey. Humans of New York has really contributed in several ways to individual refugees, their families, and the refugee crisis as a whole. This is a screenshot taken from the Honey website. The creator, Brandon Stanton, produced a series highlighting specific global issues such as the refugee crisis. With powerful images and captions taken from the stories of refugees, these series bring awareness to issues in the hopes that the blog's 20 million plus readers, mainly comprised of youth, will be inspired to become involved. One story in particular from the Refugee series, which gained mass popularity and shows just how powerful this campaign has become, is called The Scientist. This tells the story of a Kurdish civil engineer forced to flee to Turkey after his wife and daughter were killed by a bomb in their home country of Syria. His story tugged at the heartstrings of millions of readers and inspired many to act. Actor Edward Norton started a fundraiser which received over $450,000 in donations to help him and his family come to the United States. His story even prompted President Barack Obama to post to Twitter welcoming him and his family to our country. Here is a picture of the tweet. The campaign is a success. Here you can see since Honey's creation in November of 2010, it continues to thrive 6 years later with over 18 million likes on Facebook. And on this slide, you can see Honey has over 6.2 million likes on Instagram. With the growing popularity of Honey's blog, Brandon Stanton decided to write a book in October of 2013 in which he titled Humans of New York. This stayed on the New York Times bestsellers list for over 45 weeks. Overall, the Humans of New York campaign has proven more strengths than weaknesses and continues to thrive.
I use the resource, the United Nations Development Program Youth Strategy 2014 to 2017 to connect the subjects of Humans of New York refugee stories to the concept of youth-based citizenship. The youth strategy identifies 3 outcomes that the development program hopes to achieve through intentional policy creation and implementation. Policies created to target the role of youth in developing nations to solve societal issues within these countries. And these outcomes are detailed on the first slide here. Within the descriptions of each outcome are bolded words that were common to the discussion of building youth identity through civic engagement and the youth strategy, and throughout the quotes of the Syrian refugees captured by Humans of New York creator Brandon Stanton. From the youth strategy, we know that civic engagement and participation in larger society are key elements to building citizens who are empowered to make positive decisions in their home communities. While looking through Brandon's pictures and quotes of Syrian refugees making their way to America, not being involved politically was a common characteristic. Politics was synonymous with negativity and even danger. This woman on the top left talked about having 6 sons, and how the military did not differentiate between good and bad people when it came to harsh treatment, and so they fled. When there is no standard of justice based in morality from your country's leaders, how do you think youth internalize that message and act accordingly? Are they going to want to do what's best for society or only for themselves? And what would that look like? The man on the bottom right, again, had no interest in politics due to negative reasons, and he goes on to say in the rest of his quote, not detailed here, how when he gets to his new home in Michigan, he still will never want to turn on the TV because he knows that he wants nothing to do with politics anywhere, not in his old country and certainly not in America. So I ask, what does this mean for how we will interact or connect with American society? Will he always be an outsider because of this mindset? And what does this mean for his children, who will certainly grow up as Americans? Participation in society is key for individuals to develop a sense of citizenship around an identity that is almost forced to transform due to their circumstances, and in this case, refugees uprooting their lives to flee from war. Syrian refugees residing in Turkey had little to no rights to continue life as they did in pre-war Syria, as they were not technically considered citizens. Those who are not considered citizens and are told that they are not citizens will not be internally motivated to act as an engaged citizen, which is what developing societies need most. The family on the bottom left spoke about feeling isolated due to the lack of participatory structures available to them, and the woman on the top right associates her nationality as Syrian with a negative effect of simply not being able to participate at all. Solid participation structures within a society are critical to build good citizenship, as they reflect to individuals that they have a valued voice, as well as giving individuals an avenue to contribute to the larger good. One interesting aspect of the collection of Syrian refugee photos by Humans of New York was the common images of children. In almost every picture there were children, and the difference between the looks of despair on the faces of people making this journey without children and the ones of hope by those who were traveling with a young family just goes to show the power of youth. Throughout all the quotes by families with children, a hope for a better future for their children was essentially the life raft that kept them afloat. The family on the bottom right and the woman in the center are hopeful that they will find doctors in America that will assist in the care for their sons with disabilities. The father of the children on the bottom left said specifically that he left Syria because of his children, and that he heard that in America they care about children simply because he heard America has a bus that picks up children and takes them to school. All of these quotes reflect positively on the United States, the place they will soon be citizens of. And this idea brings me back to Outcome 3 in the UNDP Youth Strategy 2014-17, which is resilience building. We build resilience through newfound hope in the future lives of our children, or in what could be. Lastly, citizenship stems from a deep-seated identity, one that will be shifting a bit for each one of the refugees interviewed by Humans of New York creator Brandon Stanton, as they become citizens of the United States. The man in the suit hopes to continue his research and scientific work in America, while the man in the white shirt would like to start driving again. One of the women on the right hopes to continue her education in the U.S., while the other can't wait to start helping people again through her work as a doctor. America's ability to help them re-engage with society through avenues that reflect their old and new identities will have a powerful impact on how they choose to participate as American citizens.